I want to talk about money, but specifically, I want to talk about an emergency rainy day fund and the importance of having one of these. If you don't know who I am, my name is Kenneth, and I teach my 219,000 TikTok followers, and now I can officially say it, my 10,000 YouTube subscribers, how to trade stocks if they're interested, invest, and more importantly, live below their means. And that's what this one's about today. It's about money and living below your means and having that emergency fund. Many of you know Sarah. She's my girlfriend. If you don't know her and you don't know our story, we live in the same building. We live on the same floor, just down the hall. That's how we met. And our building it's an old building. And about 20 years ago, some company came in. They bought the building. They renovated it. They didn't do a good job. They bought the cheapest, crappiest appliances you could imagine. They just did like a smash. They would pull out the old shit, smash up the walls, put in pipes. They wouldn't seal up the holes. People got bugs and mice. It's Washington, D.C., so it's a city. It happens. Deal with it. And they would pull out your old, I got a new stove, and they pulled out the stove, and they were like, oh, that is a big hole. And I was like, that's probably where the mice are coming from. So we patched it. Anyway, point is, the company did a really poor job renovating it 20 years ago, including really cheap appliances. So Sarah's dishwasher was on the fritz, and it broke, and we had a guy come out to fix it, and he said, your valves are totally shot, all the valves, and they need to be replaced. It wasn't like urgent, but it was just one of those things, like, if they had to shut off the water or put in a new appliance or whatever. So she was like, all right, how much? $500. So $500, all new valves. And he basically was like, don't bother trying to fix this dishwasher. It's old, it's cheap. It's going to cost probably more to fix it than to just go buy a new one. So we got in the car and we drove up to Bray and Scarf in Bethesda to get a new dishwasher. And as we're walking around, the salesman is like, let me show you something. This is a Gen Air dishwasher. It's $1,500 brand new. However, a person was in here yesterday, banged it. It got a dent. We're selling it basically at cost. We want to get it out. It's huge. It's taking up floor space. So free delivery, free takeaway of the old one, free install. Just get it, buy it, get it out of here. It's one of the best models we have. We looked at a couple other, and then we were like, that's $200 delivery, $50 takeaway, all these other fees. This one is like, they really want this out of the store. We were like, this is a no-brainer. Let's buy it. So swipe the card, $600 dishwasher, $500 on new valves. Get the dishwasher delivered today. The guys come in, they take out the old one, they chuck it, they put in the new one. It's fancy, it's beautiful. You can't even see the dent that was caused. That was why they were selling it at cost. It's such a tiny little dent. And we were like, wow, this is so beautiful. And they plug it in, they hook it up, they turn on the water with the valves that now work. Doesn't work. No power. He's like, this is weird. Turning off the breaker, circuit, whatever, over and over and over, trying stuff. He unscrewed it. He double checked to make sure it was all, put in correctly. He was like, I had made a joke when they pulled out the old unit. We saw the holes around the pipes, and I said, I bet that's where your mice are coming from. And, we'll probably get someone to come back out and patch that all up, obviously. But in the meantime, the guy was like, oh, you said you have mice? And we were like, yeah. And he was like, I bet they chewed on those wires, the electrical wires, because everything else works when you reset the breaker, the oven, the microwave, and the refrigerator, everything else works. But these cords, someone must have chewed it. So you need to get an electrician out here to replace these wires. Now, this is all happening in real time. We don't know what it's going to cost. It could cost a couple $100. It could cost more. And as he's doing all this, he's like, well, guys, get an electrician out here. We can recommend someone. They'll come out and check. And I said, hold on a second. Now, what's done is done. The dishwasher's already been replaced. The old one's in, junk. I said, do you think that the old dishwasher never actually broke and it was just an electrical issue? And he was like, oh yeah, that's totally possible. Now, it could be that this dishwasher is it's broken, We'll find out later. But he was like, this is a top of the line, really nice dishwasher. We'll send someone out to check to make sure it's not the dishwasher. And if it is the dishwasher, then we'll replace it. But he was like, I'm pretty sure it's electrical, not this dishwasher. So let's just go with that for a second. We just got new valves replaced, $500, new dishwasher, $600, $1,100 in for something we didn't even have to do, it turns out. And now we're gonna have to get an electrician to come out. Now, I'm sure we probably could have said, well, hold on, if it is the electrical, bring up the old dishwasher, put it back in, but it's a 20-year-old dishwasher, it was on the fritz anyway. But this hammers home that point that most Americans don't have $1,000 in an emergency savings account. Most Americans are paycheck to paycheck, and they're one emergency away from big financial trouble. And that's why you need to save. That's why you need to invest. That's why you need to live below your means. Most people say, I'm not going to invest, I'm just going to save. Saving and investing are two totally different things, and both have to be done. Both are critically important. But to just neglect investing and only save hurts you. To only save and not, it has to be a both. And this is a prime example of when, man, we're really glad that we're in a situation, or she's in a situation, because I didn't pay for shit. She's really glad that she's in a situation where, even in the light of a mistake, which this probably was, it's probably electrical, her old dishwasher probably wasn't broken. We probably could have just said, hey, bring back the old one, put back in the old one, get rid of this new one, and we'll get our money back, and we'll get an electrician out here. At the end of the day, it was like, well, the valves, even though it wasn't urgent, it doesn't hurt that they're replaced. The dishwasher was 20 years old, so it doesn't hurt that it's replaced. All this might be totally unnecessary. It might have just been an electrical issue. But still, we're in a situation where we can just kind of laugh it off and be like, oh well. Imagine for a second that this has happened to someone who didn't have that $1,000 in an emergency rainy day fund, didn't have any money in savings, was paycheck to paycheck, couldn't afford, was maybe living beyond their means, living that flashy lifestyle and not having anything in reserves in the event of an emergency. And they just went through this whole process and then found out, oh, joke's on them. It was never actually the dishwasher. It was just electrical. It could ruin them financially. This was about $1,100 when you factor in tip and insurance and taxes and everything else going along. This is $1,100 so far, and it might not be done. An electrician might come out and say, yeah, it is the electrical, and it's going to cost $300, $500, $1,000. We walked out going, oh well, you didn't need any of this stuff, but hey, you got a new dishwasher. Flip side is someone who that didn't happen to, who didn't have that money, and they're sitting there now and they're ruined. They're like, oh my God, I just spent all this money, I'm in debt now. It can ruin you. So I want to hammer home that fact. I want this to be a short video and just kind of share the experience that we had. And this is the benefit of living below your means. You see people who make $200,000 a year, and then you compare that to a guy who makes $70,000 a year, but the guy who's making $200,000 lives so far beyond their means. It's that lifestyle creep thing that we talk about. He's like, well, I make $200,000, so I'm going to get a nicer apartment, a bigger apartment, a nicer car, nicer clothes, nicer this, nicer that. All of a sudden, that $200,000 doesn't go as far. Meanwhile, you can see the guy who's making 70 grand, 50 grand, whatever, who's living very below their means. Maybe they don't have kids, maybe they don't have pets, maybe they don't have these, I don't want to say kids and pets are unnecessary, but they don't have all these extras that are so expensive. And that guy who makes 70 or 50 or whatever, because they live so far below their means and they've chosen how they live their life, maybe they have maybe they have an old Honda Civic that's pre-owned when they bought it. They don't have a Range Rover that they can barely afford. That guy, even though he makes less, or she or they, might be more financially off than the guy who's making $200,000 and spending $200,000 and investing nothing. All that to say, like I said at the beginning, look, some people are more fortunate than others. Some people are in a situation where they are working hard and they're not paid a living wage, and they have kids and they have a rent and mortgage, and that is what's preventing them from being able to save. And that's a different story for a different time. For those people, your heart has to go out to them. It's not an ideal situation that they have found themselves in. Whether it was personal choices or not that contributed to that, you still have to feel bad for people who are so stretched thin that they're one emergency away from financial ruin is tough. But for the people who are watching this video who maybe they're not in that situation, maybe they're making a little bit more and they're spending a little bit more and they're neglecting big emergency savings because we'll worry about that later, I want to remind you that things can happen out of nowhere and put you in a situation where $500 on valves, $600 on a dishwasher, maybe $300 to $500 on electrical, maybe nothing. Maybe the electrician comes out and goes, no, your electrical is fine, it's the dishwasher. Then we'll feel a little bit better. But, all that to say, not having the money when you are in a situation where you could have the money, I want to be conscious and sympathetic to all people of all situations. But if you're in a situation where you do have the money, or you could have the money and you just don't because you're a victim of lifestyle creep, or you like nice things and you buy nice things and you're not planning and not having an emergency fund, man, that can come back to get you. It's only $1,100. To some people is nothing. To other people, it's a matter of, well, I can't pay rent and I'm going to get evicted, or maybe they're not buying a new dishwasher if they pay rent. Maybe that's the landlord's problem. But you get the idea. You get what I'm talking about. The point, I guess, is to say, please, 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 if you're in a situation where you can sock away a little extra every month and get that rainy day fund, don't worry about, obviously high yield savings would be great, but that emergency money doesn't need to gain, don't put it in an index fund, don't put it in stocks, don't put it in dividends, because markets can go down short term. And then, God forbid, there's some sort of accident or emergency and you have to sell that investment at a loss to recoup the funds to pay for the emergency. You can see how just have your investments over here if you're fortunate enough to be able to do it. And over here, have that rainy day fund in a high yield savings account or a regular savings account, and just keep that money to the side. You'll be glad you have it when something bad happens. All right, everybody, thanks for watching, and have a good day.